Top Gun is only the top 1% of naval aviators gets to go there and go into ACM, air combat maneuver.
When Top Gun hit theaters in 1986, it became far more than a blockbuster. Starring Tom Cruise as Maverick, the film transformed fighter pilots into pop culture icons and inspired millions with its thrilling aerial action, unforgettable soundtrack, and timeless style. From real Navy fighter jets and behind-the-scenes production secrets to surprising casting stories and tragic events that occurred during filming, the movie's history is just as fascinating as what appeared on screen. Today, we're uncovering 13 shocking facts about Top Gun that many fans still don't know. Which fact will surprise you the most? Now let's look behind the scenes of one of the most influential action films ever made. The article that started everything. The origins of Top Gun can be traced back not to Hollywood, but to a magazine article. In May 1983, writer Ehud Yonah published a feature titled Top Guns in California magazine. The article followed elite Navy pilots training at Naval Air Station Miramar, famously known as Fightertown, USA, near San Diego. The piece chronicled the demanding 5-week training program where pilots pushed themselves and their F-14 Tomcats to the absolute limit. Accompanied by striking photographs from Lieutenant Commander Charles Heater Heatley, the story captured the speed, competition, and intensity of life inside the Navy's most prestigious aviation school. Producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer immediately saw cinematic potential and quickly secured the rights. However, transforming the article into a movie proved challenging. Several writers and directors declined involvement, believing a film centered on naval aviators would be difficult to market. Eventually, screenwriters Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr. took on the project. To understand the world they were writing about, they immersed themselves in Navy aviation culture. Epps attended classes at Miramar, interviewed instructors and students, and even flew in an F-14 himself. Interestingly, the first screenplay draft was rejected, and many elements audiences now associate with Top Gun did not exist at that stage. Yet without Yonah's article and Heatley's photographs, the movie may never have happened at all. Decades later, the original article would become the center of a legal dispute involving Top Gun, Maverick, demonstrating just how influential that 1983 publication ultimately became. Paramount paid millions for real fighter jets. One of the reasons Top Gun feels so authentic is because the filmmakers used actual military aircraft. During the 1980s, the F-14 Tomcat represented the pinnacle of American naval aviation. Each aircraft carried a price tag of roughly $38 million, making them among the most advanced fighters in the world. To gain access, Paramount paid the US Navy approximately $7,600 per flight hour for each aircraft used during production. By the time filming wrapped, the studio had spent nearly $1.8 million on military support, including aircraft, fuel, pilots, training facilities, and access to aircraft carriers. Considering the film's total budget was about $15 million, more than 10% went directly toward working with the Navy. The investment paid off. Instead of relying on special effects, audiences witnessed genuine carrier launches, high-speed maneuvers, and breathtaking aerial photography. One famous story involves director Tony Scott's obsession with capturing the perfect sunset. While filming aboard the USS Enterprise, Scott noticed extraordinary lighting conditions. When the ship changed course and the sunlight disappeared, he asked if it could be repositioned. The answer came with a price, approximately $25,000. Scott personally approved the expense because he believed the shot was worth every penny. The result became some of the most visually stunning footage in the entire movie. The cockpit scenes were mostly an illusion. Many viewers assumed the actors filmed their cockpit scenes while actually flying through the sky. The truth is far more surprising. Although the cast did experience real flights in Navy jets to understand the physical demands of flying, recording usable dialogue inside those aircraft proved nearly impossible due to engine noise and wind. To solve the problem, the production built a highly detailed replica of an F-14 cockpit inside a hangar near Burbank Airport. Mounted on a motion platform, the mock cockpit could tilt, shake, and vibrate to simulate aerial maneuvers. Rear projection screens displayed footage of the sky, while crew members sprayed water on actors to mimic sweat and intense conditions. The actors relied on memories from their real flights to recreate the physical strain of high-G combat. Meanwhile, the actual aerial sequences were captured by Navy pilots flying real aircraft. Chase planes and specially equipped camera jets filmed the breathtaking maneuvers seen throughout the movie. One of those pilots, Scott Altman would later become a NASA astronaut. He even performed several iconic maneuvers used in the final film. By seamlessly combining practical effects, real aviation footage, and convincing performances, the filmmakers created some of the most believable flight sequences ever put on screen. The volleyball scene almost disappeared. Today, the beach volleyball sequence is one of the most recognizable moments in Top Gun. At the time, however, some studio executives wanted it removed. From a storytelling standpoint, the scene contributes little to the plot. No missions are discussed and no major developments occur. Tony Scott viewed it differently. Drawing on his advertising background, Scott treated the sequence like a stylized commercial, emphasizing movement, competition, and visual energy. The cast was filmed during golden hour, with carefully controlled lighting and repeated applications of water and oil to achieve the desired look. When executives questioned its purpose, Scott argued that audiences needed to see the pilots as young men rather than simply military professionals. The scene showcased the rivalry between Maverick and Iceman outside the cockpit, highlighting their competitive personalities in a completely different environment. Over time, the sequence became one of the most parodied and referenced moments in movie history. What some executives considered unnecessary filler eventually became one of Top Gun's most. Maverick saved Ray-Ban. Before Top Gun, Ray-Ban aviator sunglasses had fallen out of fashion. Originally designed for military pilots, they were no longer viewed as a must-have accessory. Annual sales had dropped to roughly 18,000 pairs. Then, Maverick arrived. Tom Cruise's character wore the sunglasses throughout the film, pairing them with his leather flight jacket and effortless confidence. The look resonated instantly with audiences. Within months of the movie's release, Ray-Ban reported a dramatic increase in aviator sales, with purchases rising by roughly 40%. People didn't just want the sunglasses, they wanted the attitude that came with them. The aviator became one of the defining fashion accessories of the late 1980s and helped restore Ray-Ban's popularity worldwide. Even decades later, the effect remained powerful. When Top Gun Maverick hit theaters in 2022, sales surged once again as a new generation embraced the same timeless style. What began as practical military eyewear became a lasting symbol of cool, all thanks to one unforgettable movie pilot. Val Kilmer never wanted to be Iceman. It's hard to imagine Top Gun without Val Kilmer's Iceman, but surprisingly, Kilmer initially wanted nothing to do with the movie. Years later, the actor admitted he wasn't particularly interested in the script and felt uncomfortable with films that seemed to glorify military conflict. However, because he was under a multi-picture contract with Paramount, he had little choice but to audition. Rather than embracing the opportunity, Kilmer reportedly arrived at the audition wearing oversized shorts and delivered his lines with as little enthusiasm as possible, hoping the studio would lose interest. Instead, they cast him. Once filming began, Kilmer turned his reluctance into one of the film's greatest strengths. He leaned into Iceman's cool, disciplined personality and intentionally maintained some distance from Tom Cruise, helping make the rivalry between their characters feel more authentic. The cast naturally split into informal groups, with Maverick and Goose on one side and Iceman's team on the other. That dynamic carried over onto the screen, adding genuine tension to their scenes. Because the script offered relatively little background for Iceman, Kilmer created much of the character himself. He imagined a pilot driven by perfection, discipline, and an unwavering desire to be the best. Small choices, such as his intense stare and restrained confidence, transformed Iceman from a simple rival into one of the movie's most memorable characters. Ironically, the actor who originally tried to avoid the role later became one of the franchise's strongest supporters and eagerly returned for Top Gun Maverick decades later. The bar scenes gave the film its heart. Not every unforgettable moment in Top Gun happens at 30,000 feet. Some of the movie's most beloved scenes take place inside crowded bars, far away from fighter jets and combat training. One of those moments occurs when Maverick spots Charlie in a packed officers' club and decides to get her attention by singing "You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin'" at the top of his lungs. What begins as an awkward attempt at flirting quickly turns into a group performance as other pilots join in. The scene perfectly captures Maverick's personality, bold, reckless, and completely unafraid of embarrassment. Another memorable sequence takes place at Kansas City Barbecue in San Diego, where Goose sits down at a piano and performs Great Balls of Fire. Surrounded by friends, laughter, and music. The scene offers a rare glimpse into the pilots' lives away from the pressures of flying. These moments accomplish something the aerial battles cannot. They remind audiences that behind every call sign is a real person with friendships, families, and dreams. That emotional connection becomes especially important later in the film when tragedy strikes. Even today, fans continue to visit the real locations where these scenes were filmed, proving that some of Top Gun's most powerful moments happened with both feet firmly on the ground. The MiG-28 never existed. The enemy aircraft featured in Top Gun may look intimidating, but there's one problem. The MiG-28 isn't real. For the film's climactic dogfights, the production needed an aircraft that audiences would instantly recognize as the opposition. Rather than using an actual Soviet fighter, the filmmakers turned to aircraft already available through the Navy. The planes seen on screen were actually Northrop F-5 Tiger IIs, American-built jets commonly used by Navy instructors to simulate enemy aircraft during training exercises. To create the illusion, the jets were painted black and decorated with Red Star insignias. The fictional designation MiG-28 was also a clue that the aircraft wasn't real. Soviet fighter aircraft traditionally carried odd-numbered designations, such as MiG-15, MiG-21, MiG-23, and MiG-29. A MiG-28 would have immediately raised eyebrows among aviation enthusiasts. The filmmakers also avoided identifying a specific enemy nation, allowing the story to remain timeless rather than tied to a particular Cold War conflict. Ironically, while the aircraft itself was fictional, the training methods used to portray it were based on real military practices. The famous inverted scene couldn't happen in real life. Few moments from Top Gun are more famous than Maverick flying upside down directly above an enemy aircraft. It's one of the movie's defining images. It's also completely unrealistic. In reality, the F-14 Tomcat's twin vertical stabilizers extend well above the aircraft. If a jet attempted to fly that close above another plane, the structures would likely collide. The turbulent air flowing between the two aircraft would create additional danger, making such a maneuver extremely risky. Fuel systems present another challenge. Although fighter jets can briefly fly upside down, remaining inverted for an extended period can interrupt fuel flow and potentially cause engine problems. Holding position long enough to exchange gestures and take photographs would be virtually impossible. To create the scene, filmmakers relied on clever editing and visual effects. The aircraft were filmed separately, and the final shot was assembled during post-production to create the illusion that the planes occupied the same airspace. Despite being physically impossible, the sequence perfectly captures Maverick's rebellious attitude and fearless personality. Sometimes cinematic impact matters more than technical accuracy, and few scenes demonstrate that better than this one. Maverick's motorcycle was a superbike legend. Whenever Maverick races alongside fighter jets on his motorcycle, audiences aren't just looking at a stylish prop. They're looking at one of the most advanced motorcycles of its era. The bike was a Kawasaki GPZ 900R, the machine that introduced the famous Ninja name to the world. Released in 1984, it featured cutting-edge engineering, including a liquid-cooled inline-4 engine and a top speed exceeding 150 miles per hour. At the time, it was the fastest production motorcycle available to the public. For many riders, it represented the closest thing to fighter jet performance on two wheels. Tom Cruise, however, had little motorcycle experience before filming began. To prepare for the role, he received riding lessons from a motorcycle dealership in California and quickly developed enough confidence to perform many of the scenes himself. The motorcycle nearly didn't appear in the film. When producers approached Kawasaki about supplying bikes, negotiations became complicated. The company initially refused to provide free motorcycles despite the exposure the film would offer. Eventually, the production acquired the machines through a local dealer. Although the Kawasaki logos were removed, motorcycle enthusiasts immediately recognized the GPZ 900R. The image of Maverick racing his motorcycle alongside roaring fighter jets became one of the most iconic visual sequences in the entire film, symbolizing freedom, speed, and the pursuit of something bigger than yourself. The romance almost looked very different. One of the most memorable parts of Top Gun wasn't originally in the movie at all. After early test screenings, audiences enjoyed the action, but felt the romance between Maverick and Charlie needed more development. While the chemistry was present, many viewers wanted a stronger emotional connection between the two characters. In response, the filmmakers decided to shoot additional scenes months after principal photography had already wrapped. By that point, Tom Cruise was busy filming The Color of Money with Martin Scorsese, while Kelly McGillis had moved on to another project and changed her appearance, including dyeing her hair. Those differences created a major continuity challenge. To disguise the changes, the production relied on creative solutions. McGillis wore a baseball cap during the elevator sequence, while the romantic scenes were filmed using soft lighting, silhouettes, and carefully controlled camera angles. The now famous "Take My Breath Away" love scene was one of the additions created during these reshoots. What began as a late attempt to strengthen the romance ended up becoming one of the most recognizable moments in the entire film. The soundtrack that almost never happened. The music of Top Gun became just as iconic as the movie itself. Songs like Danger Zone and Take My Breath Away helped define the sound of the 1980s and became inseparable from the film's imagery of fighter jets, sunsets, and high-speed action. However, bringing those songs to life was far more difficult than most people realize. Several major artists were offered Danger Zone before Kenny Loggins eventually recorded it. Some declined because of scheduling conflicts, while others were uncomfortable with what they viewed as the film's military themes. By the time Loggins was approached, producers were running short on options. Fortunately, he accepted the opportunity, and the song went on to become one of the decade's most recognizable rock anthems. Take My Breath Away faced its own obstacles. Composer Giorgio Moroder originally expected the band Berlin to choose a different song. Instead, lead singer Terry Nunn preferred the romantic ballad. Not everyone in the group agreed with that decision. Internal disagreements emerged, and tensions surrounding the song eventually contributed to the band's breakup shortly after its success. Despite the behind-the-scenes drama, the soundtrack became a massive commercial success, topping charts around the world and selling millions of copies. The music didn't just support Top Gun, it helped turn the film into a cultural phenomenon. Its influence extended far beyond the movie theater. Radio stations played the songs constantly, music videos received heavy rotation on MTV, and album sales continued climbing long after the film left cinemas. For many fans, hearing the opening notes of Danger Zone instantly brings back images of F-14s launching from aircraft carriers, while Take My Breath Away remains one of the most recognizable movie love songs ever recorded. Decades later, both tracks continue to appear in commercials, television shows, and sporting events. Few movie soundtracks have become so deeply connected to a film's identity or left such a lasting cultural legacy. The sequel achieved what the original couldn't. When Top Gun arrived in theaters in 1986, audiences embraced it immediately. Critics, however, were more divided. While many praised the breathtaking aerial photography and entertainment value, others criticized the story and viewed the film as style over substance. Aside from its music, major awards recognition was limited. Everything changed with Top Gun. Maverick. Released 36 years later, the sequel exceeded nearly every expectation. Critics celebrated its storytelling, emotional depth, and practical flying sequences, while audiences turned it into one of the biggest box office successes of the modern era. The film earned nearly $1.5 billion worldwide and became the highest-grossing movie of Tom Cruise's career. It also received widespread awards recognition, including 6 Academy Award nominations and a nomination for Best Picture, an achievement the original film never came close to matching. The sequel ultimately won the Oscar for Best Sound and was named Best Film of 2022 by the National Board of Review. At the Cannes Film Festival, Cruise received a lengthy standing ovation and an honorary Palme d'Or in recognition of his contribution to cinema. One notable surprise remained. Despite carrying the film both on screen and behind the scenes, Cruise was not nominated for Best Actor. While many expected him to attend the Academy Awards, he remained in the United Kingdom, working on the next Mission Impossible film instead. In many ways, Top Gun: Maverick provided the critical recognition that the original movie never received, while preserving the excitement and spectacle that made audiences fall in love with the franchise in the first place. The sequel achieved something even rarer than financial success. It united both audiences and critics. Longtime fans appreciated the return of familiar characters and themes, while younger viewers discovered the franchise for the first time. The film's commitment to practical effects and real aerial photography stood out in an era dominated by computer-generated action, earning praise across the industry. It also proved that legacy sequels could honor the past without relying solely on nostalgia. More than 3 decades after Maverick first entered the danger zone, Top Gun: Maverick reminded the world why the original became a cultural phenomenon and secured the franchise's place in movie history. Even after all these years, Top Gun is still one of the coolest movies ever made. From incredible jet scenes and unforgettable characters to behind-the-scenes secrets and surprising stories, it's easy to see why fans still love it today. Whether you grew up with the original or discovered it through Top Gun, Maverick, the franchise continues to entertain audiences around the world. Thanks for watching, and tell us which fact shocked you the most. Hit like and subscribe, and watch more videos as we uncover the stories behind your favorite movies and TV shows.